Happy Thursday, one and all. Welcome to Campcast. As you can see, my hair each week is getting more and more out of control. Please send help. Hairdressers in the UK are not going to open for another month, I think, the last time I checked. So yeah, maybe I'll do a DIY job. Who knows? In the meantime, I hope you enjoy this episode with Susanna, who is a repeat guest and one that I'm very happy to welcome back at that. We talk about all manner of topics. I'm not even going to list them now, but you can predict there's going to be some space, there's going to be some language, there's going to be some parsnips. It's going to be a good time. Don't forget that if you are interested in joining the Campfire Speaking Club, all you got to do is pop over to the Campfire page on VK, and you can use promo code Campcast21. That's Campcast21, and you'll get a free lesson when you buy your first packet. So, without further ado, I hope you enjoy the podcast. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Susie, how's it going?
Hi, hello. I'm very happy to be back, actually. I'm good. How are you?
Yes, can't complain. This is my second podcast I'm taping today. I'm not messing around today. Got stuff to do. Sunday's like my main admin day, so I record 1 or 2 podcasts. Once I recorded 3 podcasts in a day. Nearly wiped me out. Then I plan all my lessons for the week, and I organize my content. Sometimes I miss stuff, but like for example, like I'll get like a Technical Tuesday text already written. Next week's Technical Tuesday is about, I can't even remember what. It's about the question why, and other questions which you should not ask in the classroom. Now, obviously, that's a generalization, because there are some situations when asking why is a good idea. And so the example I give in Technical Tuesday, there's no spoilers because this Technical Tuesday will have already come out by the time this podcast comes out. Okay. The example I give is, for example, a student asks, why in the text does it say, what was it? Hang on, let me look it up.
You mean the grammar or content?
Well, this mostly comes up with the grammar. So basically, what I was getting at, hang on, I'm going to find the manuscript and I'll actually say what I've written down. What I was getting at is, those students who always ask why, even though if you tell them why, it's not going to help anything. So This always comes up with, for example, countable, uncountable. With like sort of elementary pre-int level people, you always get 1 or 2 people who ask, в смысле how many potatoes? Картофель же. It's uncountable. Why is it countable in English? Why would it be any other way? This question, like, where's the logic? That's a stupid question. And it's completely understandable. I've asked it many times. It's a really hard bias to get rid of. This idea that the way that your language is structured, that's, your baseline level of logic. That's your base. This is, of course, how everything should be. And any other language I learn or any other way of looking at the world is, by definition, illogical if it deviates from my language. And the only thing you need to say in response, if someone says that, is countable and uncountable is almost entirely arbitrary. Not entirely, but it's about 75% arbitrary. And you know that because there are some words which describe the same object in the real world. You have 2 words, one is countable, one's uncountable. You could say туфли, you could say тапочки, you could say обувь. Really, they describe the same thing, but one's countable, one's uncountable. It's shoes and footwear, clothes and clothing. This stuff really doesn't matter, but people always need to know why. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, but I thought actually, first of all, you were talking about these students who kind of, they just ask why because they're in the habit of doing so. And even if you answer, they will later on get back to you with some kind of, but I actually Googled, and here is one instance of using this word differently. So now I'm kind of, why again? Yeah, and then it's just like, well, because I said so. But on the other hand, I mean, very often it's so, I don't know actually how to feel this. I mean, I'm kind of, I know how to deal with it, but it always bugs me. Like my elementary students ask a question, which is so valid and relatable, but they're just not supposed to know it just there yet, because otherwise it will be so overwhelming for them. And you just keep it here, like simple, this is your level, not further on. And the same with the others, like, you know, my upper intermediate would, and this and this, and I know by so far for this level, they don't have to know all these subtleties. If they are genuinely interested, surely, but I wouldn't spend the whole lesson doing this. And
sure. Well, I'm not like afraid of teaching. Like if like an elementary student asks me a question, so about third conditional, I'll tell them. If you want to know, I'll tell you.
Yeah, sure.
There's not like this is forbidden knowledge. You can't. This is the sacred text. Like I don't take that approach. But I know what you're saying. There are some people who ask questions when I can tell you, but it's going to really confuse you. Trust me, you don't want to know. You don't want to know the answer.
Yeah, this kind of thing. Like, I don't know, like say articles. Like, is it always like no the in front of names? And it's like, well, of course there is. Is that the Ivanov you're talking about? But you know, am I supposed to tell you that now when you're struggling between, you know, singular and plural? So yeah. So what do you suggest? This is going to be in the podcast. What do you suggest against why questions?
No, so this is it's not in the podcast. This is one of my technical Tuesdays. It's coming out next week. So my so I just looked at my text now. The example that I gave of like a good why question, of a question that actually has a useful answer, is why in the text does it say aren't I, for example? Shouldn't it be amped I? And that's a good question. That's a really good question. And you can give an answer. Say, look, it's really hard in English to pronounce amanatu I, so for that reason we default to aren't I. It's just one of those things for pronunciation. It's the same reason we don't say liestnica, we don't say kipiatok. We things, and if you give that answer, the student has learned something, and they're not going to make that mistake again. Perfect. That's a perfect why question. And I give a couple of other examples like that. But people who ask the question why simply for the sake of asking the question, it's a useless question, and it's a useless way of thinking as well. Because it's the same as asking the question, where's the logic? Where's the logic? Stupid question. Who told you that English is obliged to be logical? Who told you that? Or language in principle? Yeah, of course. Language evolves almost entirely arbitrarily, as I've said. Not entirely. There are certain social forces on how language evolves, but it's almost entirely random. And sort of there's this expectation. And again, when I say it's a stupid question, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anyone. I ask this question all the time. I was like this. And then at some point I realized you need to stop asking this question because it has no answer. And even if it does have an answer, it's not the answer you need. Sometimes there is an answer to that question. For example, some people could ask me, why is the word peas, as in garoshek, why is peas countable in English? Now, that actually has an answer. And I can tell you the answer if you want. The original word was peas, as in, how is this spelled? P-E-A-S-E, I think. I'm going to look that up. So the word used to be spelled like...
Yeah, it should be.
Yes, P-E-A-S-E. That's how the word was spelled. And it's an uncountable. Exactly, as in peas pudding. As in there's like a nursery rhyme: peas pudding hot, peas pudding cold, peas pudding in the cot 3 days old. Did I say in the cot? In the pot, I meant. So that was an uncountable noun. Now, by the process of rebracketing, people mistakenly thought that peas, which sounds like it's a plural noun, they thought, oh, that's the plural of pea. And that's how this word peas evolved from an uncountable noun into a countable noun. So that question, why is peas countable, has an answer if you really want to know. But again, why are you asking that question?
if I tell you the answer, is that gonna teach you something apart from some curious etymological fact? Is that gonna stop you making mistakes in the future? It's you're asking the wrong questions if you're asking questions like that. What do you
Yes.
think?
I
you
think
agree?
you're just you're a sitting encyclopedia right now. Are you not? Yeah, yeah. I think that this is absolutely. I mean, they're not stupid. They're not fruitful. They won't teach anyone. They just take your time. So yeah, I guess so. I mean, I can't say whether I am bothered as much with such questions. We're back to university. That's the news. Where we are finally released, and we're trying to get back to normal offline. And now, like, my major challenge is just to keep them seated for 90 minutes. No question whatsoever. People are so used to this kind of leisurely style. I don't know what, I think I'm under the impression they've been studying in bed all those 6 months. So now it's so hard for them to, just to keep themselves at desks.
What subjects are you teaching?
English, general English, elementary, pre-intermediate at university, and then it's English for special purposes, academic purposes for high levels. So for all of them, it's just so difficult to get back. On the one hand, they really wanted it, but now that the distant learning is finished, everyone is just kind of, very, very like.
Is this when you say special purposes? This English for making nuclear bombs?
Mm-hmm.
We all know what you get up to in
Supposed to be a secret.
Yeah.
Okay. Not like I've got sociologists and psychologists and biological. The guys I told you about before, for example, the one who's doing some samples for future Mars explorations. So it's radiobiology.
Speaking of Mars explorations, did you see what Rogozin put on his social media?
I've missed it. I've only seen the later on kind of the feed line was full of commentary, but as far as I understand, the first one was deleted, the original.
I think both of them were. So for anyone who doesn't know, Rogozin, the head of Roscosmos, he put once the NASA probe landed on the surface of Mars, he put up a photo. It was a pretty funny photo. Who was it? Was it him in the photo? I can't remember now. Who was the guy in the photo?
I mean, I didn't see the photo. I only saw the comments later on, late at night, today, actually, like in the morning. I was like, oh, and everyone's like, discussing something. I imagine Rogozin has put something, but no, I don't see what it is. So what's essential is it about? Is it a joke or?
Yeah, so he just put like, the first he put like, so when the probe landed and the sort of what would you call it, like the safe mode camera started working, and the first picture was this like quite gray picture of the surface of Mars from inside the container of the satellite. And Rogozin put like a picture. It was pretty funny. He put a picture on social media of someone peering in to the window. So in the first I think it was a picture. I can't remember now. I think it was him. And then he put up another picture. And something like "Potomiki prishli," and there was like loads of aliens standing there. So "Go home, Americans!" With
that one I actually saw. It's in my version it said "Yankee go home," and there were a lot of aliens. Well, that is funny. I mean, why not? Yeah, but I saw a lot of, again, like people, negative comments and stuff, and I was like, okay, I have missed something. What I was actually first of all, I enjoyed the way, like, we also watched this, the whole process, and we even celebrated with some friends of mine, been drinking, and stuff, and later on was this, like, once it landed, and then NASA did have this long kind of, broadcast, and they were discussing stuff, and it's so much like this way, and it does relate to one of your technical Tuesdays when they called her she, and it's so nice, and it's so sweet. It does look better than he or it. Like once she landed, and like we waited for her to land, so it's like, it's incredible. So yeah, what I saw then on Twitter was this yesterday, was the release first in English social media and then in Russian, kind of even translated like the whole post. So with someone who put a short video of the Mars environment and even with the sound. Have you seen that? Oh, it's a huge scam. It's a huge scam. Like, and that was someone who even claims to be at NASA. Like, here is the first kind of image, like the video, short video plus a sound, and it's kind of a sound of a wind. And then I saw it already like a couple of hours later in the Russian media with the Russian text and everything. And finally, someone came back later, some astronaut from NASA first, and some engineers from NASA came and and there were so many people already, reposting it, saying, look, so incredible. And I was first under this impression, like, oh, the first time I see Mars. And then I was like, hang on, I have to check it really. And I started scrolling, and I see that, yeah, it's not that. It's actually the images that were taken in November from another, what do we have there? Another probe. Not the Perseverance, even Curiosity.
Curiosity, yeah.
And of course, there isn't any sound whatsoever. It's just like thousands of pictures were taken. And then came this engineer saying, like, I've been compiling thousands of these pictures for months, trying to create just a short image. And you put it as a videos and sound and stuff. And it's like, but so many people don't like already, jumped on the bandwagon and, and believe it's true. And I was like, you can never trust anything these days.
Yeah, I think people are really like, we had a speaking club the other day about fake news and conspiracy theories and all this stuff. And people are really pessimistic about, and no wonder, are pessimistic about how social media is a platform which incentivizes the creation of fake news. It incentivizes the spreading of conspiracy theories and outrage and woke politics and, right-wing extremism and all the rest of it. And yeah, that's a growing problem. But I'm not as pessimistic as other people because, yes, there's been this huge spike in conspiratorial thinking and out of control fake news. But in response to that, there has also been I suppose you'd call it a counterculture of fact checking, of pro-scientific reasoning, of enlightenment thinking, of journalistic standards and integrity, which if you read like a newspaper article like seven years ago, and you ask the question, where's the fact checking on this? What's the, what does reality check say? BBC reality check, or, where's the sources? Why are the sources not indicated? People think you're insane. So it's like, it's in the paper, so it's true. But these days that doesn't happen. Papers and consumers of media have much, much higher standards. I'm not as pessimistic as other people. Basically, the bottom line is if you get your news from Facebook, you're an idiot. So don't get your news from social media. That's all that needs to. Sorry if you do. No, I know that you don't.
Well, these days you're bound to get everything from the social media. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, when I had this content based materials in my community about when we talked about computers, and I did borrow some material from a book like Computer Literacy for Children or something. I remember somewhere at the end of the book there was kind of a list of useful links, and one of them was actually a website which is essentially about whether anything you've read is a fake or not. So very often, if you want to check some information, I was surprised there is a site already for that. Like you go and you put some info there, and chances are you will read that. Okay, yeah, it's true, or no, it's a fake. I don't know how they compile the data. But yeah, it's kind of exciting. On the other hand, speaking of Facebook, and we did also have this discussion in some of my groups, like whether these should be banned because they do promote this violence and the spread of fake news. I remember we discussed it with my PhD students a couple of years ago that when we have this revolution in Egypt, there was an article that it was in many, most of it was actually promoted through social media. If it hadn't been for Facebook, it probably wouldn't have, happened that fast and wouldn't have spread that fast.
Well, you could say that about the entire Arab Spring.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So what's the question is, do you think the government should ban the internet once these things start happening?
So this is another question which we discussed in our speaking club. So my answer is no. Because Facebook and Twitter, et cetera, are private companies, and the government has absolutely zero business telling companies what they can and can't do. Now, obviously, if laws are broken, that's a different question. The internet should not be treated differently from real life. If I say something which is libelous, libel, just in case anyone doesn't know, is the crime which, as it happens, Navalny has recently been prosecuted for, of saying something damaging to someone's reputation. If I say something libelous, if I make a direct call for violence, then of course that's actionable. You can't do that. You can't, and I can't make a direct call for criminal damage as well. I can say all I want. I think Susanna is a Satanist, and I think that she's evil and blah blah blah. I can say all that. I can say offensive things about you or about anyone else I want. But if I say, therefore, you need to go and throw a rock through her window, or therefore, you need to go and attack her, that's when it's illegal, because it's a direct call for violence. So there are a few caveats to freedom of speech. Sure. Now, the question is, but it's not that simple. It's not that simple, because take like a coronavirus conspiracy theory, right? Like this nonsense theory that, for example, 5G is causing coronavirus, that Bill Gates wants to inject you with microchips so he can control your brain and all of that stuff. First of all, if you believe that sort of stuff, immediately turn off this podcast, please. I don't want your support. Second of all jokes aside, is that not an example of speech that can lead to harm? Is that not an example of speech which can lead to loss of life? I would say that it is, because you could probably measure it. You could say, look, these conspiracy theories have been spread on Facebook, and people believe them, and they didn't get vaccinated, or they didn't believe that coronavirus was true or real or whatever, and people died as a result. I'm like, yeah, but where do you draw that line, and who decides where the line is? For example, in the UK, we don't have a total freedom of speech like they do in America. America is actually the only country where it's legislated in the Constitution, the First Amendment, that the freedom of speech shall not be impaired. Now, I wouldn't say that the UK is a particularly restrictive dictatorial country, but there are much stronger limits on freedom of speech. For example, hate speech is illegal. You can't say something racist, for example. And people of good taste, I think, would generally agree that saying racist things is bad. Should it be illegal? Oh, that's difficult, because who decides what's racist? For example, if I say something critical of the Black Lives Matter movement, which I have done in the past, some people call that racist. What, you think Black lives don't matter? What, are you some sort of racist? What, are you some sort of bigot? And so, by some interpretations, I could be prosecuted for that. That's no bueno. That's no bueno. I think unless you say categorically, you've got to have absolute freedom of speech or not, otherwise you get a slippery slope kind of argument. You see what I mean? Yeah. But none of this takes away from the fact that Twitter and Facebook are private companies, and for example, Donald Trump getting banned from Twitter. If it were me personally, yeah. I'm a fan of freedom of speech. I wouldn't have banned Trump, but it's not my decision. If Twitter wanted, they could ban all white men tomorrow. They're a private company. If you don't like it, go and use another social media platform. But again, it's not that simple. Sorry, I've been talking for so long. I'm just passionate about this.
No, but I mean, yeah, and I can totally relate to that. And now that you've mentioned Navalny, I actually remembered that while I was reading these comments under the video about perseverance, surely sooner or later, like somewhere around 50th comments, it was already about Navalny and Viking and stuff. And then there was another comment like, Jesus Christ, I came here to read about Mars. Why are you starting about Navalny again? It's like, how are these related? Doesn't matter. People just are free to express themselves. But you're right saying that, yeah, it is a fine line as to how harmful it is and what are the consequences direct or not, to what extent they are direct. But yeah, I think it is worrying, the fact that so many people mindlessly just follow whatever they read, and we're talking about critical approach these days, but I don't see that there's anything improving on this side.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. I'm more optimistic than you. I think in this regard, I think it's the culture is improving in terms of, for example, I don't know about Russia, but certainly in the UK, kids now learn this at school. Kids are taught how to navigate social media safely, obviously from a child protection standpoint, because there's lots of creepy people online, God knows, but also how to interpret news, how to fact check. Kids are taught this stuff at school these days, which I'm all for. I think educating the populace is priority numero uno, and then everything else just trickles down from that.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's a great move, actually. I think. Well, if you have already adopted this, chances are we're going to have it on board anytime soon as well.
Well, yeah. Who knows? Who knows? Getting back to what I said about you know, if you don't like Twitter, then you can just get off Twitter. Now, to sort of contradict what I just said, it's not that simple, because I can go ahead and say that, but you know, what do I mean by that? There's not really any alternatives to Twitter, and if they are very quickly shut down. Happens all the time. So what we want is a free market on the internet. We want a free marketplace of ideas, a free marketplace of platforms. Say, look, this social media company, they let you say whatever you want. This social media company is much more conservative. You can say certain things, but they'll ban you if you say something too radical or whatever. That's what we want. But it's not very, if you try and set up a social media platform tomorrow, no way. There's no way you're going to be able to do it. If you let on the wrong people onto your social media platform, like what happened with I've forgotten what it's called now, but there was this like alternative to Facebook or alternative to Twitter, which suddenly grew in popularity because it was anti-censorship. That was the whole idea. And people like Trump went on it, and you got a lot of white supremacist right-wing guys. There was also some, you know, normal people on there as well. But guess what happened? It got blocked. Google took it off the Play Store. Apple took it off the App Store. You know, it's much more difficult than you might think to make. But again, this is not an argument for government intervention. This is an argument for a free market. You need a freer market. If you can solve a problem with less freedom rather than more freedom, I suppose that's your only choice. But if you can solve it with more freedom rather than less freedom, that should be your default, I guess.
I mean, are you at all optimistic about the free market? Because I don't think we have any these days. I mean, even with the Twitter itself, let alone all the competition, these like strategies they've devised, the content you're now given depends on your search and everything. You've got this smart, like you won't even see some content on Twitter unless it is somehow, you know, closer to you in terms of either, I don't know, your interests or geography or anything.
Mm-hmm.
We're so limited these days. I think it's just an illusion that we are free to choose information. We're incredibly limited.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That I'm not optimistic about the, just to clarify, we're talking about the free marketplace of ideas, yeah, not about the economy.
Yeah, the ideas and not only in the way you express yourself, but actually the content you get is now generated by these subtle strategies, which are, you know, pre-programmed. And these days, Twitter and Facebook, they all have it. Like you will only be given the news that either somehow related to your interests, your previous searches, or the area you live in. So it's not exactly as it used to be, let's say 5-10 years ago. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I'm also worried about that. And just to clarify, so what Susie's talking about here, it's not only stuff like targeted ads. It's like I searched for some, you know, search for some shoes, and now I'm getting only shoe adverts. No, it's deeper than that. It's for example, have you seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the example they give there is Google is different depending on which part of the country you're in. So take America, for example. If you're in like a kind of northeast, sort of East Coast, you know, blue state, that's to say a democratic state, and you type in climate change, this like suggests, you know, when you Google like auto completes the sentence for you, it says, you know, it's always stuff like, you know, what can we do to help climate change? What can we do to combat climate change? If you try that same search in Texas, you'll get like, is climate change real? Is climate change a hoax? Is climate change fake? And that's not to say that information is hidden in Texas or hidden in the East Coast, but it's ordered in a different way. Do you ever click off the first page of Google? I don't. I don't look at the second page of search results.
Yeah, prioritize in a different way. And it's not prioritized by yourself. So
yeah. So to answer your question, am I optimistic about the way that information is curated and presented and manipulated to play on our psychological weaknesses? No, I'm not, and I'm quite worried about that. However, my solution is to make a freer marketplace online to allow new social media companies the chance to popularize themselves without getting banned instantly. The problem is we've got a monopoly right now. And that's, again, it's no bueno, because when you get monopolies, that's when you get people controlling the narrative, controlling the dialogue. So rather than government intervention, what I would like to see is a freer market, not a less free market. I don't think regulation is the key. I think more freedom is the key. if, for example, if you wanted to start a social media company tomorrow, saying, look, our whole philosophy is we don't manipulate data, we don't manipulate searches, we'll show you adverts, sure, we got to make money, but they're not going to be targeted, you know, and we're going to be completely honest and not be sneaky with your personal data like Facebook sometimes is. Good luck, because you need to jump through all of their hoops, and if they think that you're going to threaten their monopoly, they'll find a way to block you, ban you, take you off the app store, and that'll be that, and the monopoly continues. So yeah, not a fan of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, there is some new kind of thing. I've heard it a couple of times already. My students have mentioned some kind of a, I don't even know whether it's a social, is it a new networking site or something, like when it's more than TikTok and like some videos, and you can join and then you can share something when you're allowed, kind of basically something online going on instantly as a stream for a short period. I can't remember the name. Have you heard
Clubhouse?
it? Oh yeah, maybe Clubhouse, because I haven't tried it, so I have no idea what it looks like. But just
a student mentioned this to me recently as well. If I've got the correct answer, Clubhouse, as I understand it, is you need to be invited to join it. That's the whole idea. So it's kind of like an elite social media company, which doesn't particularly interest me. That's kind of, I don't know, kind of pretentious. So you get invited, and it's like a London gentleman's club. You've got 2 invitations. You can invite 2 other people. So it's very much restricted. But you know, like with all these things, you know, you can go online and buy a membership very easily. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm figuring out like how popular are they going to be soon for.
Well, if this monopoly keeps going with Facebook and Twitter, then and YouTube and all the big guys, then not very long. Not very long. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? So, let's revisit our favorite topic, shall we?
Which one?
I would like to organize a Parsnips conference.
Where?
That?
Online?
I don't know, somewhere. So where was Pasternak born?
I'm not that good at.
Oh, I missed his birthday, by the way, because I was thinking like, I'm going to do like some sort of special post for Pasternak's birthday. It'll be super funny. I'll do something about parsnips, about Pasternak, whatever. It was the 10th of February. So I missed it by like 1 week because we're recording this on the 21st of February. So I missed it. So I'll have to wait another year before I can do that post. But I don't know. Like, I just think it would be, it's not for development. It's not for learning anything. It's performance art. It would be a protest in conference form, a protest against the whole idea of classroom censorship, the whole idea of the Parsnips, mentality, which I detest, as I know you do as well. Wouldn't it be funny to have a conference where there's big photos of Pasternak on the wall, we're all eating parsnips at the break time, and we're discussing controversial stuff? Do you think anyone would attend?
Yeah, I mean, I would be in. I'd go along, but I think we do. Both of us sound quite unanimous. So, what kind of debate are you going to have there?
It doesn't have to be a debate. It can just be a gathering of people who want to talk about controversial stuff. You know, does it have to be a debate? Well, I guess you could make it super interesting by, you could invite like a bunch of Navalny people and a bunch of Putin people and just watch them duke it out.
Yeah, it could be fun. Well, I do have some students, and they kind of their preferences are pretty pronounced, and every time I make sure like the row doesn't start, at least in my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
in which direction are they pronounced, or would you rather not say?
For example, like a couple of years ago, I had a student who was so pro-Putin. I mean, I have nothing against it whatsoever. It's just that the rest of his group couldn't care less. And he, whenever he was given a chance to speak or anything, it was only about that, Putin and stuff and everything and patriotic stuff and, like flags everywhere. And his social media was full of these things. And they mocked.
That's what I've no disrespect to anyone who, because there's nothing wrong with being proud of your country and being proud of your history and your heritage, of course. But there's this, I always call it patriotism головного mozga is what I call it. It's when it goes too far, when you are so patriotic that you just throw reason and logic out of the window. That's too much. Yeah,
that's exactly what was with him, and they did have, since they were there was a group of 12 very boys, and they were all pretty energetic, so they had the scandals and rows and everything. And now that some years passed, and he has become calmer, and they have become lenient, and everyone is like, oh, okay, it's our Eugenia, and he's like, you know, he'll be doing stuff, and he's already like, yeah, actually I was stupid, you know, back in the days, I'm not that into it, so it's fun. But now we've got a new generation, those who say we should all go and take part in meetings, and a little bit older students who say, oh, we actually couldn't bother because it was too far to walk, and we didn't attend anything. And I was like, yeah, that's my stance.
Now, here's an interesting moment. When you teach at university, you're essentially a government employee under the Ministry of Education. Now, the Ministry of Education can and is very often used as a political tool and as a tool for the sort of body politique to suppress oppositionist views, for example, and that goes for other ministries as well. That goes for the healthcare system, for civil servants, saying anyone who takes part in unsanctioned protests, unsanctioned meetings, can be expelled from university. What's your thoughts about? Have you had any directive to do so, or would you feel, I don't know, comfortable talking about protests and stuff in your class? And I'm not saying that you are like super pro Navalny or whatever, but
I actually, my stance towards politics is really, I couldn't care less. I think politics is for those who really know what it is. I think it should be delivered and discussed by people who have education in it, who know history well, and I'm not that kind of person. So I don't care about politics just for the reasons that and that I haven't even ever voted in my life. Just because I know it's not good of me as a citizen, but I think I have no right, because I have no idea what's happening there. I have no critical approach whatsoever. It's like this guy, there is kind of this stand-up comedy, and there was this guy, and he's like, eventually, like at the end of the day, I'm just kind of this empty, bucket, and the information just falls into me. Like I'm watching Navalny, and it's like, oh, good man. And then I'm watching somebody else, and he says, but there are some questions to Navalny. And he's like, yeah, they are. But then again, I'm watching somebody else who says, Navalny is a great man. I was like, yeah, he is. And then again, there will be something, but he's a bit suspicious. Is he from America? Oh, yeah, that might be the case. So
from America? Jesus.
Yeah.
That's a little bit too far into the conspiratorial.
Well, yeah, kind of. But, So I actually, maybe it's not a good thing of me, but I don't think I'm in the right power. And I actually think that opinion, well, I mean, elections should be organized. I would rather it be organized by educated people where, the representatives probably of some communities have the right to vote, but they're kind of educated and, politically informed and everything.
So you are a fan of feudalism? as we had in 11th century
I'm a fan of monarchy. I think my country will only survive if there's something close to Stalinism, actually, because as long as you give people choice, it is just random. Yeah, I think it's in our soul. I don't know. You've been in Russia for long enough. I mean, can't you relate to that? I mean, for some reason, we're not there yet to be able to, explore this freedom fully. With many of us, I'd rather just be given very precise instructions and boundaries.
I take this kind of stuff with a pinch of salt. So you know my thoughts on like the famous Russian mentality. My critique of that phrase, right? So the kind of for people who haven't heard me talk about this before, I at no point am I saying that there's no such thing as a Russian mentality. Of course there is. It would be stupid for me to say otherwise. But I often feel like people use this phrase Russian mentality when they have no other arguments, and they kind of abuse this phrase, and they use it like to sort of it's an argument from authority. A similar illogical trick that people play is, and the kind of Russian mentality 2.0 is, Russia's not ready for that. Russia's not ready for it. And what do you mean? Explain exactly. People who say that, Russia's not ready for democracy. Russia's not ready for freedom. Russia's not ready to legalize cannabis. Russia's not ready for gays. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Why? Let's have a principled discussion. It's like,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
I think, yeah, I do look like I'm overgeneralizing stuff. And actually, at heart, I believe we are far more democratic than some other areas, like even yours, for instance, because they do say we have no freedom of speech or we have nothing. And I was like, well, you haven't seen what's going on there. We actually do. It's just that you perceive it from a different perspective. So that's why I don't think we are not ready for democracy or anything. I think we do have it, but with our certain Russian flair.
Russian style democracy.
I know. Yeah.
Freedom of speech is obviously a very obviously we're both very concerned about it, and it's very hard to argue, I think, that Russia has more freedom of speech from a legislative perspective, but from a social perspective, I kind of see what you mean, because if I go to for example, my work, and I start talking about Black Lives Matter, or I talk about other things which are politically incorrect, I'm in very big danger of losing my job. That's no joke. Could I imagine that happening in a Russian company? No way. But again, it depends what you're talking about. If I go into my work and I start criticizing the Church of England, nothing's going to happen. Let me see what happens if I try and criticize the Orthodox Church. Again, something that I have done before and will continue to do. So yeah, I take your point. It depends what you're talking about. But from a state perspective, from a legislative perspective, it's very hard to argue that I think that Russia has absolute freedom of speech. And again, I'm not saying we do. The only country that really has it enshrined in law is the United States. And even then, look at what's happening with people getting deplatformed and cancel culture and all of this social justice outrage. So I think no one's got it right. No one's got it right. It's a difficult issue for sure.
Yeah. So getting back to your question, by the way, I mean, the university, yeah, surely we're subject to whatever the Ministry of Education tells us. But I'm kind of lucky. First of all, the area we live in is pretty different because there's this International Institute for Nuclear Research. There are a lot of people from different countries. And surprisingly, I don't know how they keep going, but the city, when they vote, it's actually not the Putin who usually wins. It's normally the, for some reason, maybe because this was the, back in the days, the city was pro-communist, so Communist Party is still in full swing here, and we're kind of not punished much, because everywhere of course it will be like Единая Россия and everything. Yeah, so here it's a little bit I don't care attitude. And when we have the meetings, so yeah, they may sometimes send you the letters please go and vote, we insist, but because they need people, but I've never been and no one has done anything. And there was never anything like meetings or stuff, for instance. So I mean, it is always, you may feel it is kind of enforced, but actually if you don't want to take part in anything, it's okay. No one will say it.
Sure. Yeah. It's more of a polite problem.
I might show you our biggest meeting so you'll understand what it looks like. So this was because I have this picture, I use it in my classes. This is the biggest meeting we had at in my city. You'll see the mayor here in front, and he's kind of politely chatting with people. And the overall impression after this picture is just basically only, as we call it, lazy people who have no work and responsibilities take part in this.
Yeah, that's
the overall stance of people I know here. Yeah, we do have some kind of nice, young people who want to express themselves, but the common stance of everyone else is just, he has nothing to do, really. Why don't you go to work? Why are you standing in front of, in front of the, what we call it, the car, with some kind of poster.
Yeah. And that's a valid point. That's a valid point. There are some people who simply, like we discussed last time about civil disobedience, my friend said about the student fee hike protests. There are some people who do that, but again, if a protest, if they're protesting about something valid, that may be true, but it's not an argument. And you've got to, that's why I don't like protests, because the protest is always bigger than the issue. Like I said last time, I that's not how I choose to express myself politically. And I've never been to a protest for that reason. The thing, let's get on to Navalny, shall we? Because that's the sort of elephant in the room, elephant in Caesar. So see if you agree with me here. I'm not even interested in Navalny from a political perspective. I'm politically I don't really align with him that much. Some things I agree with him about, some things I do not. But as a socio-cultural phenomenon, Navalny is nothing original. And this is what I'm worried about. This is what I'm most worried about, is that Russia again is falling into the same trap of cult of personality. I can't believe that Russia hasn't learned its lesson now. And I say this from a place of love, but for God's sake, you need to diversify your democracy. It's the same with Lenin. Like when he flew into, was it Vnukovo or Sherik in the end he flew into? I can't remember.
Originally they were supposed to be Vnukovo, and then it was changed to Sheremetyevo.
Well, oh, I thought it was the other way around.
Or was it vice versa?
Whatever. I mean, the main thing, at least Buzova arrived safely. That's the main thing. When he was landing in the plane, it was like Lenin coming to the Finsky Vokzal. It's the same damn thing. The same with Stalin, with Khrushchev. The same with Putin. And now, like, everyone is saying, "Oh my God, the savior." The savior is back. The one person who can stand up to Putin. The one person in all of Russia who, like, can you not hear it's the same thing happen? It's the same thing who say that Putin's the only person who can rule Russia. Anyone who's got any sense knows that that's a stupid thing to say. Of course, not only Putin can rule Russia, but the same thing is true about all of these Navalny supporters. Not only Navalny can counter the system. I can't believe it's happening again. Do you agree? Do you think that it's another cult of personality thing happening?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as much as I'm ignorant, and mostly what I know about Navalny and all this is from memes. Again, I normally get all my news in political sphere from memes, and then I have to now I'll go and check what was going on there in real life. It is definitely, it looks like a really like well played, repeated script for again and again. Yeah, it does have this flair. And I don't know what will make it change it. It's not about a figure. It can't be one figure who will change it. And it's not about these protesters standing, no matter how many, like, in numbers. I mean, there really has to be a shift in the mindset, but I don't know how to achieve it.
Yeah, good luck. I don't know. I'm not optimistic. It's the same thing over and over again. The same cycle repeating itself. And that's not to say that Russia isn't improving overall as a country. I'm not arguing that it is, by the way. I think it definitely was until about 2007, 2008, and then things started to level off a little bit. But even if we've got, like, bardak with our political system, or sorry, your political, sorry, this is the thing. I've spent most of my adult life in Russia, so I very much identify with this stuff, and I feel a spirit of brotherhood and kinship with Russians, because I think I soaked in a little bit of the Russian soul myself. Listen to me, I sound like a Russian, for God's sake. I soaked in a bit of it, and the Russian people's pain is my pain. Not one for one, obviously. That would be super arrogant for me to say, living in a different country, and like and again, I didn't grow up in Russia in the 90s, and I don't know what it's like to live in a country that's just changed its whole political structure. I don't know what any of that's like, but I feel solidarity and brotherhood with the Russian people, and I, as any normal person, I think wants what's best for the country. And I think the country can certainly make improvements, even if we've got all of this nonsense happening in the political system. It doesn't help to have crony capitalism and to have corruption at high levels of government. But I hope that people can just continue to make progress, open businesses, write books, create art, and hopefully the rest of it will sort itself out. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good hope. And actually now, although it's also pessimistic in a way, don't you agree that people do thrive in, writing stuff and creating when they are actually limited?
Yeah.
Like even with Pasternak and everything, that.
In some way, you can't.
I'm not saying this what I would like to see in the nearest future, but.
Mm-hmm. This is an old idea in this is somewhere in the Bible. I can't remember. It's a Christian idea, an old Christian idea, that there are two ways that you could possibly have of construing reality. There's for example, God, in the Christian understanding, the definition of God is everything is the Alpha and the Omega, everything that can be, cannot be, and ever was and ever will be in all of time, all of space, everything, the universe and not the universe, just everything possible at the same time. That's God. That's the one interpretation Christian thought of what God means. And then there's our reality, our human reality, which is by definition limited. And then the existentialist, what people like Dostoevsky and stuff, that their solution to the problem of life is that life is utter chaos, is catastrophe. Everyone will die. You will die, most likely slowly and in pain. Everything you own will be lost. Everything will turn to dust. We know this. And that's what gives life meaning. The fact that you cannot have meaning without limitation, because if you are in that first godlike state, then everything is true and untrue at the same time for all time in all space. So there is no possibility of having any meaning. But the moment that you introduce limitation into your life, suddenly I go into a library, right? And I look at all the books, and you can do this calculation. I can calculate, more or less when I'm going to die. If I look at statistics and I look at my lifestyle, I can calculate that I'm going to die, 85, let's say, for example, if I'm lucky. And I can calculate, okay, I can read, a book in 2 weeks, let's say. If I tried my absolute best to read this library, I could read a teeny tiny percentage of it. Now that's quite sad. There's no way I'm going to read all the books. I'm not going to watch all the films. I'm not going to speak to all the people. But again, if you had an infinite lifespan, I don't think you'd do it either, because you're like, I'll just do it tomorrow.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I suppose the existentialist solution is limitation creates meaning, and what you need to do is live your life in such a way so as to justify your existence, to say, look, this is bad, this is really bad. Everyone's going to die, everything is dust, everything is doom, but can I live my life in such a way that it's better than not existing? And I think that's what I try to do. I'm sure you try to do the same. I don't want to get all depressive on you, but
I love the way you put it. And now with the limitations, it's so much rings the bell. I mean, I've got a speaking session in about half an hour, and my pack is not ready yet. So I guess limitation will boost my creativity eventually. Yeah, but so yeah, that's why I'm saying. No, you were talking about these writers and stuff, and all these great minds. I do think that they perform their best when they do face certain limitations, neither funding or social activities or anything.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. Oh, geez, we're so philosophical today.
I know, right? We didn't even speak about English. Probably should have done. All right, whatever. It's Campcast. You can speak about what you want. Freedom of speech reigns on Campcast.
That's what I like about it. So what about the conference? Are we organizing anytime soon?
Probably not. I'm not going to lie to you. But again, it's... I love the idea of organizing a conference essentially as one big joke. The idea of organizing a conference to talk about parsnips, to eat parsnips in the break time, it's performance art. I love it.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, we can work on that, and everyone come to the Pasternak conference in 2025, probably at this rate. Anyway, I can feel the elbow in the ribs. I know that you want to go and prep for your class. And we've been going for about an hour anyway. So I think we are hot to trot, as I believe the kids are saying these days. No, I say that.
All right. No, I actually love it a lot. And I don't know, how come the time flies so fast? I would love to keep going just forever.
Well, this is a fourth dimension time warp kind of vortex, as we've discovered. So yeah, all right. Well, thanks very much for coming back on the show, and enjoy your class and your dinner. Where are you going? Some restaurant, you said?
Yeah, it's going to be a restaurant, so that's why. For those of you who are watching it, don't get, scared. I've got far too much makeup on me right now. But
I
so,
myself do
yeah,
not, so I'm balancing out the dynamic.
in that case, you're staying at home. So yeah, thanks very much for having me, and I hope we'll come up with some new projects probably later on. I'm falling behind with some of your technical Tuesdays, but I've been thinking of creating some new packs for listening as well. I love them a lot.
Do.
Yeah, for those of
Please
you
do.
who haven't listened to those, please go to Mike's page and just listen to everything he has to say. All very entertaining, and informative.
Well, thank you very much for that little plug. And obviously the same goes for Susanna's page. Don't think, just subscribe.
Yeah, or take me to a restaurant.
Or both. Одно другому не мешает, as they say.
Это точно.
Okay, thanks again, and see you when I see you.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, ciao.